Good evening, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to another episode of A Word with Pastor Webb. I'm your host, Pastor Webb, and we have a very, very special guest this evening, Dr. Ayanna Walker, a medical doctor. Please help me to salute and celebrate my friend and sister, Dr. Walker. How you doing?
Thank you. Great. Thank you so much for having me here. I certainly appreciate the opportunity.
How was the drive?
So I had a praise break the whole time here.
Amen.
Listen, Pandora was on and rocking this morning.
Amen.
So the drive was great. I just got a new car. So I had it, in sport mode. It was great.
A new car? What you driving?
A Beamer. I'm a Beamer baby now.
Beamer baby?
Yeah.
What, 7 Series, 5 Series?
I have an X6.
Go on with your bad self.
Very sporty.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're not going to prolong the time. What's your story? Tell me, how did you grow up?
So I saw these podcasts that you do before. I was thinking you would start with something easy, like what's your favorite color?
What's your favorite color?
Okay, all right. No, my favorite color is purple. But my story, I grew up in Lakeland, Florida, small town not too far from here. And my mom remarried early. So most of my life I was a part of a 2-parent home, had a stepbrother. I would consider us to have been like low to middle household income. And my parents were very hard workers. Both of them kept 2 jobs. So we were able to see that early on. And when we pretty much weren't in school, because school was like the focus. In my household, education first, extracurricular next. When we weren't in school, when they weren't at work, there was one place you could always find us. Can you guess where that place was?
Church.
Church. Church. And I'm not talking about Sunday church. I'm talking about oratory contest, Sunday convention, Bible study, dance practice, choir practice, that kind of church. And then on Sundays, so maybe you can help me out with this. I still don't understand this. On Sundays, we would go to 2 church services, but the preacher would preach the same
sermon.
So why did I have to go to 2 services? I could not figure that out. But that's where you would find us. We would always be at church. In fact, most of my friends from younger days came from church. Okay. And we would always just sort of get together. Really successful individuals today, like-minded, we would get together and just lament over how much we had to be at church. And we were kind of the group who wanted to do the bad things, wanted to get in trouble, but we were too afraid of our parents.
Right.
So that's kind of like my upbringing and just to set like a context and a framework for, how I grew up.
Right. So did you make straight A's in school?
Yeah. So I think this came from like my mom's side of the family. She had a lot of teachers in her side of the family. Mom, dad was a teacher, stepdad was a teacher. And so she always made me put school first. And so I never honestly really had a problem with studying, right. Reading, that kind of stuff. So made straight A's, graduated salutatorian. And I remember I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, there was this program called Hooked on Phonics.
Yes, yes.
You heard of that?
Yes.
So it was for people who weren't progressing along like they should,
right.
you know, and so she bought Hooked on Phonics for me. And I'm like, I can read fine. My grades are good. Like, why am I, you know, I was like maybe 7 or 8.
Right.
And she bought these Hooked on Phonics tapes. And I was so embarrassed to be on Hooked on Phonics. But looking back, that is absolutely like what elevated me.
Wow.
So you don't think about like taking some of these like, you know, these classes where they like give you extra work or like,
right.
you know, extra hands-on. For people who are already doing well, but
right.
that was like so brilliant of her.
Right.
So yeah, education came first. I had to bring A's in the house, or I had to hang that cheerleading skirt up.
Wow.
That's how they felt.
So you was a nerd.
I was a cool nerd though.
A cool nerd.
A cool one, yeah.
Okay, next question. Give me 3 words that best describe you and tell me why.
I would say the first word is decisive.
Okay.
Which for me in my field is very, very important. Essentially working as an emergency medicine doctor, you have a little bit of time to gather what facts you have, and you have to make a decision, and you have to feel confident in that. So for my work, being decisive is very key, and it's something that sort of came innate to me. I will say outside of work, you guys might call it impulsive. I don't like that word, but that's what people outside of work would call it. Because I just don't want to take all day to make a decision. If I got the facts right there, I'm gonna put it together and I'm gonna make it and I'm gonna go. But
right.
again, that's called impulsive outside of what I do. Another word is empathetic.
Empathetic.
Yeah,
okay.
so my mom is very empathetic. She's so generous. We didn't have anything, and so what we didn't have, she would give.
Wow.
So those are kind of things that I saw and I grew up with. And so for some reason, anytime, like let's say you go to the bank, and the teller is like rude to you. She doesn't want to speak or anything. First, I'm upset, but the very second thing I always find myself doing is saying, what is she dealing with?
Right.
Because, you know, I know the psychology of like displacement pretty well, and you see that every day where someone is like projecting onto you really what's going on at home.
Right.
So I have the ability to kind of like put myself in their shoes, to be sympathetic and always think like, what's their story? You know, like why are they this way?
Wow.
A third word. Happy.
Happy.
Yeah, happy and jolly. I honestly think anybody that has met me up to this point, they would use that word to describe me. Even if they just met me in the first, 5-10 minutes, because I love laughter,
right.
love to smile. It's hard for me to hold grudges. Like it's an act of like God to get me to remember I'm not supposed to like you. Like it's too much for me to be
wow.
like 2 weeks later, like, oh, we're not supposed to be speaking? I forgot,
So forgiveness.
I would say forgiveness and the ability to just be like, I just want to be happy. Like, if we have a confrontation, if we argue, let's get it done and let's be over. And after that, let's go on. So I would definitely say just a happy-go-lucky type of person, more positive thinking on that spectrum. Glasses always, half full.
Right. So out of all these professions in the world, why did you choose to be a medical doctor?
I wish I had a really profound story for you. I wish it was like an airplane, save where like, I saw somebody dying and I saved them. But really that's a better question for my mom, because for some reason she was obsessed with doctors. Like, okay. You're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be a doctor. And she would buy me these things that would like, reinforce that. Like Dr. Ben Carson's book, who's a black neurosurgeon.
Right.
She would buy me chemistry sets, like things that just kind of make me more inquisitive and stimulate that math and science part of things. And when I got old enough to decide on a career, I was like, well, I always heard about this doctor thing that she's talking about. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, that's cool. I
right.
like that.
Right. So growing up, they tell me doctors have certain toys they play with. Did you have a chemistry set?
Mine was the chemistry set, yeah. Mine was the chemistry set, but I think this is what sets me apart as an emergency doc versus any other doc. I didn't read the instructions to the chemistry set. It came with all these fancy chemicals in it, right. And I just went outside with 2 of them, put them together, and was like, let's see what happens. So yeah, I had that. I had crystal growing sets, operation, like those kind of things.
Okay. So doing some research on you, you went to UM for nursing school.
Yep.
Then went to Morehouse Medical School. Why did you choose Morehouse?
Oh, that's a deep story there. So being completely honest, I knew nothing about Morehouse, nothing whatsoever. What happened was, I told you that I was like a high achiever, made all A's. Well, it came time to this entrance exam for med school, the MCAT.
Okay.
I studied for that for months. I even did a review course. I made really great scores on the practice test. So when it came to taking the test, I was like, this is good. I have this in the bag. I bombed that test the first time. And it was like I had never failed the test in my entire life. I had never got a bad grade the entire, so I didn't know how to act. Like this was completely out of what I didn't even know how to accept that. So, you know, long story short, got myself together and I had one more chance to take it to be able to get into medical school that year. So I did the same things. I'm like, I'm doing this review course again. I'm working harder. I'm gonna do it, you know, even better this time. I got a lower score the second time.
Wow.
Devastated, crushed, because if you're trying to get in medical school, this is the test. Like this is the score that they're judging you upon. They don't care about community service too much sometimes, your extracurricular. I mean, those are things that just boost it, but that score is what you need.
Right.
So because of that, I had to apply to a lot of schools, like 30 plus medical schools, California, New York, everywhere I applied. And so Morehouse was on that list. I didn't know where they were. I'm clicking. I gotta find a school, I gotta find a school. So interestingly enough, Morehouse and University of Miami are the only schools that gave me a chance.
Wow.
Morehouse came back and they offered an interview. And I, you know, being honest, I was like, first of all, where's Morehouse? You know, who are they? And then I was like, so I held off on accepting it for a while. I mean, as if I had like a good score. So I'm like, I'm waiting on that UM interview because that's where I want to go. I want to go to University of Miami for undergrad. I want to go for medical school. This is my life plan. This is what I wrote down. So I'm waiting for UM. They finally give me an interview. And then I say, well, I'm going to take Morehouse's interview as a practice. Like, let me just go there. Let me practice. Let me see how it's going to be so that I can, you know, do well for the UM interview. I went to Morehouse, fell in love.
Wow.
Like my people, you know, like I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. It was so, I mean, my goodness, like just felt so collegial, friendly. I mean, I knew I was going to do well there. Still wasn't convinced because I'm like, I know I want to go to UM. This is like the life goal.
Right.
I went to UM within the first hour. It was not my fit at all. I did not feel a part. It was completely different than I had always expected. So I was just, it was a whirlwind. I was like, man, okay, I'm going to Morehouse. Like this school I had not heard of, where I did not plan. This is where I'm going, and loved it. Loved that decision.
Wow, awesome, awesome. I know your job is very stressful, and what is the most stressful part of your job, and how do you deal with stress?
Honestly, for me, the most stressful part is not being able to fix things. And because I'm a person of action, when I don't see things being fixed, I'm like nervous and anxious and like pushing, like, come on, we gotta do something. Especially working in like a big corporation where things are happening, but they're moving at, oh my God, snail pace, you know, a year before something. And I'm looking here in the emergency department like, but we can take this right here and fix this right here, you know? So that's very frustrating for me, honestly. How I deal with that, I would, what I mostly do is control what I can control, and I make a checklist.
Okay.
So I divide these bigger tasks into small tasks, and then just check them off one by one. Okay. So for in the emergency department, instead of me looking at healthcare as a whole and like how it's not fixed and how it's not how it's supposed to be, I'll just say, what can I do for this patient at this time that'll make them feel reassured, that makes them feel like, you know, I feel good, I don't have anything life-threatening. And I'm like, check, good, I feel good about that. At least I could check something off the list. Right.
So do you work out, exercise?
No, not at all.
Oh my God, and you a doctor?
Yeah, not at all. I feel like I get enough working out in the emergency room. I'm never sitting down, I'm back and forth. Yeah, okay. If I had a Fitbit, I'd probably, you know, work out more than a lot of people. So no, I don't prefer to work out.
Okay. Now, what advice would you give to a young person who wants to be a medical doctor?
I would definitely say be open to plan B, even if you don't know it's plan B. With my Morehouse thing, definitely be open. Don't close any doors yet. You're too young to close doors. Wow. Once you get older, you can start closing doors because you had some experience. Don't close any doors. Say yes to every opportunity and see where it gets you. But definitely, you know, be okay with being steered away into another direction.
Okay. What have been your biggest challenge as a young Black female doctor?
Let me just start by saying I went to a high school that was all white, completely white. Maybe it was like 2 or 3 more Black people. And there, you know, I felt included. I never felt excluded. They always, you know, made sure that I was a part, you know, of the team,
Right.
of the culture there. So I didn't have too many issues growing up with that. But now that I'm in boardrooms and I make important decisions, it's very evident that I am the young Black female physician.
Yes.
And so for me, it's actually my own pressure that I find most difficult. Like, sure, there are microaggressions and, you know, how people display racism and things like that. But honestly, what's affected me the most is I feel as though I'm the token. So, you know, I have to walk in there and represent every Black.
Every Black.
I have to walk in there and represent every female. It's not a shift that goes by that someone doesn't ask me how old I am or, man, you look young for a doctor. And it's only so many times that you can like give a nice little cynical, you know, response to that. But eventually it's like, yes, I know, okay. How's your heart today? You know?
Right.
So that's the hardest for me, is just the pressure that I put on myself to outperform, be better than, you know, my white colleague. Everything has to be professional. All my emails have to be read 3 or 4 times. So that kind of pressure to me is probably the most difficult, being in that role.
Okay. Now, what role has God played in your success?
That's like asking, how does oxygen help you day to day? Like, if it helps me breathe, it helps me sleep. Honestly, that's how I feel about God. I can't remember a part of my life where he wasn't a part of my life. Amen. Fortunately, you know, because I grew up in the church, and even though I hated going to church so much, it was just instilled in me. And so when I had these like trials and tribulations and struggles, he was where I would turn. And, you know, just constantly like praying, even if I felt like he couldn't hear me sometimes or I couldn't hear him, just being able to speak it, get it out there, something would happen. You know, something would eventually happen. So now moving, you know, forward into more of this position, I would say his peace is what I feel most necessary for me. Amen. And helps me deal with, you know, anxiety and these tough situations and just life or death decisions. Just having, you know, his peace. And when I was growing up, I had a pastor. He's an elder now, Elder Thompson. I remember his definition.
Jimmy Thompson?
Yeah, Jimmy Thompson.
Jim.
I love.
Jimmy T.
Yeah, that was our pastor growing up. But he had a definition of peace that just for some reason stuck with me. It was God's presence in a storm. Amen. Like, not quietness, not calmness, not relaxation, but his presence in a storm. And that's what I constantly ask for, and that's what I constantly feel. And it's necessary for me. I mean, every bit of it is necessary for me.
Wow. So God, big part in your life.
Oh, huge, the part of my life, like huge part of my life. Yeah.
Your mom is a pastor as well.
She is a pastor. She hasn't always been a pastor. Okay. Funny story. So my husband's mom is a pastor, right, and my mom is a pastor. But neither of them like went into it as like a career at first. They both had careers for a long time, and then recently became pastors, which is crazy.
Okay. So what are you most proud of as a person or as a doctor?
You know, for me, most proud, I feel silly saying this because you're like, oh my goodness, you're a doctor, like that should be what you're most proud about. But honestly, I'm most proud about like things like when I can really kill a meal. Like when my meal looks good, it's like gourmet looking. I mean, I'm up there with Chef Ramsay sometimes. Like when I do things like that, I'm like, wow. Or when I make like a flyer and I'm like, look at those skills. Right. So I think it's because I didn't have a chance growing up to do those things. Right. So now that when I like can, you know, master little things, I'm like, I'm proud of that, you know.
So you celebrate the small things.
I celebrate the small things. Yeah, so anything that I find that I'm like even a piece of good at, you know, Ramsay obviously wouldn't say that, and like, you know, graphic designer would be like, are you serious? But for me, it's a big deal.
All right. So if you could trade places with one person, who would that be?
I mean, I think for every girl, that's Beyonce. But for me, it's Beyonce on her birthday because I'm not trying to work out for the fans. Right. I don't want to read the Instagram comments. I'm very sensitive. Please don't, you know, please no comments on this, you know. But only for her birthday, and we'll be like on a cruise going to Amalfi or something like that.
My daughter loves Beyonce.
Oh my God, everybody. Like, yes.
Wow. So what's so special about Beyonce?
She's so down to earth. Okay. Like you can look at her and say, I could hang with her. Like, that's my girl.
Okay. All right. So what keeps you up at night?
Truthfully, nothing. I sleep really well. I'm being so honest with you. Like, if I'm professional at anything, I can sleep. I sleep more than 8 hours a night 99% of my life, I've always slept more than 8 hours a night.
So you're a doctor, nothing worries you, you need to go sleep on.
No, so same thing with that. Like, yes, things used to worry me, and yes, things do try to worry me, but again, Elder Thompson, he had this saying, if you're gonna worry, don't pray, and if you're gonna pray, don't worry. So when I find myself about to worry, I'm like, did you pray about that? And if I did, I try to shut it out. And for me, it's like a train, right? There's a train and there's many platforms and there's many stops.
Right.
So I find myself on this train of worry, and I'm trying to, you know, when you worry, you go from the next thought to the next thought. So that's like the next stop of the train to the next. I'm gonna get off that platform. I'm gonna stop the train, like right there in that thought, and I'm getting off. I'm not going down the rest of that because I'm just gonna run myself crazy. So when I do find myself, let's say that's at night, you know, before I go to sleep, worrying and thinking about, I'm gonna stop that thought right there. I'm not even gonna continue it. I'm not gonna figure out what the end is gonna be. Let's get off the train, let's go to sleep. We gotta get 8 hours.
So you don't need no sleeping pills or nothing?
No sleeping pills or nothing. Nothing. I can have coffee, it don't matter.
Right, okay. So how do you balance work and family life? I know you're married, so how do you balance?
So emergency medicine makes that very, very easy, let me just say. Sorry, surgeons. We make it very easy because it's shift work. So when I come home, I'm not taking a pager home with me. I'm not taking any notes home with me and having to call patients or anything like that. And we don't work as many hours as the typical American or other type of physician. Like a typical emergency medicine physician works like 12 to 15 shifts a month, 12-hour shifts. So when you're working, it's hard, but when you're off, you're off.
Right.
And so that makes it easy. And the other thing for me is I can get bored pretty easy sometimes and just like over it. So I look at my career as a pizza. So where, you know, the regular person would have a 9 to 5 as their pizza, that's their full-time job. I take slices out of that.
Correct.
No, I'm not gonna do emergency medicine for the whole time. Take 2 slices out, put, you know, EMS medical director in there.
Right.
Take 2 more pieces out and I put teaching in there. And then take 2 more pieces out and I put, you know, my husband's business that we started in there. So all of that together will make like a full-time job for me. So by the time I'm, you know, tired of one, oh, it's Tuesday, I'm going to the next job, you know. So that's really, you know, how I balance the work part of it. In terms of the personal life, so I'll give you a typical week for me. Typically, it'll be where I go in and I work in the emergency department 2 days a week. And then another 2 days a week, I'm performing medical direction duties for the EMS system there.
Perfect.
So then what do we have left? Another day a week, I'm teaching the residents. And then my last 2 days are my off days. But on those days, at least one of those days is spent working on the business that my husband and I created, Domi Italian Ice. And so those 2 days off and working with him gives me that personal life balance where we spend quality time together because we're working on something that together we're passionate about. We started the business because we wanted to get out in the community more. We thought, how could we give back without just writing a check? Both of us are like very engaged and want to get out there and do better for our community. We're not too concerned about, you know, what the president is doing, who's the president. We want to take care of what's here. And then things will follow. So we created the business to be able to go out, spread some love, have this really great, authentic, handcrafted, good tasting Italian ice that we can serve. That we can serve to people, and then a percent of each sale goes back into that community. So something that we love, that we enjoy, we get to get out together and do. That's our quality time, even though it's working. To me, it's still, it's together. It's something that we get to do together. And, you know, again, growing up, I didn't get to do some of these things. So I get to go hang out with churches, daycares, schools. I go to weddings, birthday parties. Like, I'm out there. I love it. I love it.
All right. So besides Beyonce, who's your role model?
My husband is my role model.
Amen.
Yeah, he is, because he is not like me in a lot of different areas. Okay, we are polar opposites in some areas, and so the ones that I admire about him is, I would say, he's not afraid to stick up for himself. And for me, what I would call confrontation, for him is not confrontation. It's just about, hey, do you need to tell someone how you feel? You know, I'm like, no, we don't need to, you know, but he's able to do that and it's so admirable. I would love to be able to have that quality where he can just stand up for himself. He has a work ethic that's crazy. If he writes it down, it's getting done. I mean, he would run 10 miles a day just because. Like, he's not running for a marathon. He's just up in the
Staying in
morning.
shape.
Yeah, just to stay in shape. So, I mean, that kind of work ethic.
So he's working out and you're not working out?
No, because he gets up at 6:30 in the morning and he works out, and I'm like the devil in his ear. Sometimes I'll be like, don't you just want to stay in bed and let's have breakfast? He's like, no, I got to go run these miles. I'll be back. You know, you hang out.
Right.
But no, he definitely is my role model. He loves so hard. Like, he cares a lot about his community. Anytime something comes up where it's like, oh, hey, can you go speak to Boys and Girls Club or something like that? And I'm like, man, you know, I don't like public speaking. He's like, you got a duty. It's your right. Like, you need to talk to these people and tell them that they can do it too. I'm like, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Like, I got it. So he loves hard. You know, he really is my role model that I get to see every day.
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. Now, if you had one wish, what would that be?
In these day and age, just how, oh my goodness, we're dealing with the election, we're dealing with the pandemic, race riots. I wish that everyone would come to know God for the simple fact of they would have some sort of fulfillment, some sort of purpose, something they're working towards. They would have hope, because a lot don't have hope right now in this. And then they would love. If they knew God, they would love. And that would solve so many of our problems. So that would be my one wish if it could come true, that literally everyone would come to know God.
All right. Now, in closing, any good words for our listening audience? Inspiring words?
Oh, inspirational words. So in the words of William McDowell, I'll take his words. God is still moving. He's still proving just how great he is.
Awesome. I love it. And the final question, what is the best talk show in the land?
A Word with Pastor Webb.
Thank you, sister. Until next time, hope to see you again. May God bless you real good.